there has to be a victim? Can't the American people, can't the government be a victim? And by definition, no.
Free Talk Live.
David from England, he's listening on the listen lines. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, thanks. The only way I can get to you right now is by phoning the station, so I'm looking for your website. But I wanted to talk about the Manafort decision recently.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, well, so we've got a decision on the Manafort case, and he's been put
Okay,
in jail
before you do this, can we recap who Manafort is? I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I've heard the name associated with
Paul
Trump.
Manafort.
I don't follow all these
Paul
criminals.
Manafort was his campaign manager.
Okay.
And eventually, he was put in jail for 7 years because he lied to Congress, and he also...
Is that a crime, lying to
violated
Congress?
Contempt of Congress.
Well,
and
Wow.
just hold on. It's a whole bunch of crimes that he was found guilty for. Among them, tax evasion and laundering money.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Those are not
eventually-
real crimes, but all right. What else?
Not real crimes?
Where's the
Okay.
victim here?
So, okay. So now we have a new...
Okay, lying to
lawsuit.
Congress and so-called tax evasion. So we're talking about lying to the government, which to me is not a crime. Do you have an actual crime this person committed?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'd like to hear that coming up.
We're going to
found
come
guilty.
back to you.
Yeah, hang on.
For 7 counts.
Okay, which count was the actual crime where there's a victim? That's what I want to hear about.
Right.
Can I get to the point?
Yes, you can.
You
in
can
moments.
in just a
Thank
moment, but we're going to put you on hold. We're going to get back to you. David, are you still with us?
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. So real quickly, David, Paul Manafort, like you said, he was the campaign manager for Trump in his election. At some point, I think he went through a couple
Probably
of
went through
campaign
more than one.
managers. Yeah. And then he got hit with a bunch of charges related, I think, from the Mueller investigations, and ended up getting charged on a number of them.
Right, but he was saying there was
time.
like some real crimes, and I understand that the term crime is essentially defined by whatever the government says is illegal.
Right.
I only really consider crime to be something that has a victim. So you said there were 7 charges, and I'm wondering which one of those charges actually has a victim.
Well, the American people is the victim.
For
Oh, no,
example,
I doubt
Been found guilty of 2 counts of bank fraud.
Bank fraud.
so there's a victim.
Filing
So the
false
bank would be the
individual
victim
tax
if it's
returns.
bank fraud. one would
Okay.
expect.
What was the fraud that was committed? Do you know?
Well, how about false tax returns?
Well, there's no
10
crime
years.
there. I
Right.
mean, that's just people trying to keep their
There
money.
isn't?
Yeah, I mean, that's just trying to keep your money away from the actual criminals
Okay,
who are the
so
government.
He's an innocent man.
Huh?
So he's an innocent man.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I don't
you
know if he's.
Yeah.
It's certainly not a crime to lie to a robber who's robbing you and say, "I don't have any more money for you
Right.
today."
Crime to lie to Congress. You can get 5 years.
That's
for
not a
each count.
crime with a victim, though. Okay, so you're talking about
there
Congress
is.
is a criminal
You're right.
enterprise.
Who's the victim?
Okay, if there's a group of criminals with a gun to your head saying
the
you have
hell
to
with
talk
it.
to
You're
us.
not going to let me get to the point. I realize that now. Good night.
Oh, okay,
Well,
I was
thanks
just
for
asking
calling.
you about the case.
That's
You
okay.
want to call in and make a claim? I'm going to ask you to back up the claim. You're welcome to get to whatever point it is you wanted to make. We didn't hang up on him, just to be clear.
Yeah. He absolutely hung up on us, and that's the point, though. And a lot of people they take issue with this idea that there has to be a victim. Can't the American people, can't the government be a victim? And by definition, no, you can't. You cannot say that some abstract collective group of people is, quote, a victim, and especially when that same group of people is going to do things that are unconstitutional, immoral. So defend yourself. And Ian rightfully called the guy out.
Yeah.
It's-
There's certainly nothing wrong with lying in self-defense.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the point here.
Now, it does say here on AmericanBanker.com that in regards to the bank fraud allegations, He apparently was accused of lying to tax authorities about his income and offshore tax accounts, failing to file reports about those accounts, and defrauding banks to get loans. So, if he was actually committing fraud in order to get some sort of pecuniary benefit, then you could argue that the banks were the victims in those cases. But it's hard to really feel too sorry for banks given how protected they are by the government.
And generally, lying on a bank application is not considered fraud unless they can show that you had no intention to pay the loans, to pay it back.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
if you just my middle name's Bob, not Eugene. Is that lying on my bank application? Did I cause a crime to occur?
Yeah, and it's been my understanding is it's always been regarded that you didn't. Same thing with job applications.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there, Rich. If you say you had this long history of working somewhere and that history doesn't actually exist, but the bank doesn't check the claim and they go ahead and give you the loans, figuring, oh, well, this person's got a long history of working. Even if that weren't true, if you've been making the payments on the loan, then there's no actual damage that's been done.
Yeah.
So,
well, apparently the topic tonight, though, is Paul Manafort.
Is it? Okay.
Evidently, because we have Dan in Nebraska.
Great.
He's listening on the TuneIn app, and he wants to talk about Paul Manafort. Dan, you're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so I actually agree with the guy from just before.
Okay.
In that they're absolutely. Now, I understand, I guess, that we have some different standards about what a victim is, because, but in my opinion, the destruction that Paul Manafort very deliberately brought to the democracy in my country is damage to me, and it's damage.
What did he do exactly?
That he has subverted this country's electoral process and has contributed to somebody who may very well stop our country from being a Western-style liberal democracy.
Okay, so you don't like Trump. I got that.
Right.
But how is it that this Manafort guy, what was it?
What did he do
democracy?
that contributed to this?
What he did that contributed to this is that he colluded with a foreign power to get somebody in who would be divisive to our country and destroy it from the inside out.
Okay, well, being divisive isn't necessarily a bad thing. The government is in the business of doing violence, and violence is divisive. So that's kind of what he was elected to do. But
well, yeah, I understand where you're going with this, but for the caller, for Dan, do you feel like the election of Donald Trump in itself was like a clear and present danger to the United States? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I would say that, but what I'd like to add to that statement, because I don't feel like it's a very full statement, is that Russia deliberately backs people who he knows will be people that they know will be divisive and pit the different types of social and cultural factions of the country against each other.
Okay. What does that mean, divisive? Because, Hillary Clinton...
Hold on. Go ahead.
With Marine Le Pen in France and Brexit in Britain, because he wants to keep Britain and the UK and the United States isolationist and away from each other so they can't compete with Russia.
Okay.
That's what he wants. He wants to divide us up so it's easier.
Okay, all governments want to divide you. Just to be clear, this is their one of their favorite tactics is for governments to get people to go at each other's throats over stupid crap like, left and right and race and all that stuff. They want people to be divided so they'll ignore the fact that it's really the government that's the problem. That's what they want you to ignore, is that the government's the problem.
And I guess my other question would be, does that sovereignty, does not having your elections messed with because it's somebody else has a financial interest, does that extend to Chile? Does that extend to any of the other countries that we've messed with? The United States.
government. I think what we did in all of those South American countries, Augusto Pinochet in Guatemala, in Venezuela right now, absolutely horrible. We should keep our hands out of it.
On that we are agreed.
Empire, all right, I'm not pro empire. All right, that is something I'm not.
Nor are we.
Okay, so you're just saying you don't like this Manafort guy because you believe he worked with the Russians to promote a political campaign?
And there's been no evidence of collusion with the Russians, of course.
There have been a lot of allegations.
Yeah.
There's an investigation going on by the FBI that suggests that Trump was involved with building a Trump Tower in Moscow and had some sort of benefit being granted to him by Putin directly. So there's a lot of interesting allegations out there.
Everything that I've seen has said there's no evidence of collusion.
But I just don't care. I mean, if the Russians are buying advertisements promoting a political candidate, I really don't care about that.
Free Talk Live. Listen live 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern or grab the podcast. It's all at freetalklive.com.